What's going on? I'm Mason Parker, and this is B-Sides and Deep Dives, the YouTube movie and music review segment where we analyze and explore the historical and hidden context of some of the most iconic works from every genre, every era. We even got some new stuff in there for you, too. So, being that this is May the 4th, and me being the blurred that I am, and the fact that this is the first installment of this series, I felt like it was only appropriate that we start with none other than Star Wars. May the 4th be with you. So, a lot of y'all know the story of Star Wars already, but you may not understand the historical context or why the movie series or the franchise is so significant to American pop culture the way that it is. So, first, if you've been living in a rock or under a rock or in a hole of some kind for the last 30 to 40 years, um, you may not know the story behind Star Wars. So let me enlighten you. The Star Wars story is set a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Episode 4 picks up with the Empire overtaking a rebel ship to capture Princess Leia and recover stolen blueprints for a new super powerful weapon called the Death Star. Now, the Death Star is basically a laser gun the size of a small moon that specifically is designed to like blow up planets and stuff, right? So Leia hides the plans of the Death Star in these two droids named R2D2 and C3PO. Well, technically she gives it to R2D2, but I really think C3PO's purpose in the plot, besides comic relief, is to fix the interspecies communication issue that really exists in like every sci-fi movie. Is how the organisms from different worlds communicate with each other. Well, now we have C3PO and expert in human cyborg relations and protocol droids. So basically, he's an interpreter. So he fixes that problem. But if we're being honest, I really think that C3PO is what we in the urban community would call a hoe ass nigga. Reason being is because he don't really never shut up. And when it's time for that action, he's really not the first person that you see busting off. You know what I'm saying? As Jay-Z put it, C3PO would not bust a grape in a fruit fight. But for some reason, always has something to say. Now, I'm not saying that he's not useful, because he is, but let's just say if this is real life, we would smack that motherfucker. Anyway, RTD2 is a certified thug. He is about that action. And anyway, he and R2D2, I don't know why I want to keep calling him that. Him and R2D2 get sent on an escape pod and crash land on the planet of the main character called Luke Skywalker. Now, this whole franchise is in essence called not the whole franchise, but the movie franchise is called the Skywalker Saga. And I'll get back to that in a little bit. But anyway, once they get there, they get captured by these looters and then bought by Luke and his uncle, who are like farmers or something like that, and for use on their farm. And so the message that is hidden in R2 is uncovered by Luke while he's cleaning the droid, and he finds out that the droids are connected with a local man named Obi-Wan Kenobi. Now, Obi-Wan Kenobi is a old Jedi Knight, and when Luke sets out to take the droids take them to Obi-Wan Kenobi to find more information about what's going on with this message, he learns about his father's true identity. He learns that, things didn't really happen the way they thought they did. And, everything that his uncle has pretty much told him was in essence a lie. So they're headed back to, I don't want to say confront his uncle, but he's headed back home. He has to get back home. Before he does that, Obi-Wan introduces him to this thing called the Force. Now, the Force is pretty much defined as an energy source that springs forth from life itself, that binds the entire galaxy, the entire universe, every living thing within it. It flows through us, within us. It just links everybody, right? And so tapping into this source, enables one to do a lot of really cool things. So Luke is rushing back to the farm to discuss these things with his uncle, and they find out that the Empire has tracked the droids down to the farm and then killed his family. So of course now he has no one but Obi-Wan, and he goes off on a journey of self-discovery with him, and of the likes of which he could have never anticipated. So let's explore the historical context first. I highly encourage you to watch the movie. It's May 4th. You're probably quarantined with the rest of us, so you really ain't doing nothing. Go educate yourself. But what you may not see in the movie, what you may not learn just from watching the film, is the historical context and why this movie was so significant when it came out. So you got to understand that America we had just finished the Vietnam War. 1975, I believe, was the year the Vietnam War ended, right? The Vietnam War was a very long and taxing war, a very divisive war, as much as many wars are, or all wars are. But the American people were very split on whether or not to support this war. They felt like it really had nothing to do with us, and that we were sacrificing American lives for no reason. And so a lot of folks that, went to fight that war, when they came back, they came back to disarray. They came back to a lot of disrespect. They came back to just not being taken care of. The country was pretty much hung over from, a war that lasted years and years and years. And so it took its toll on the country. And so you have Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. And the significance of that, I think, is the fact that A New Hope represented the fact that, now we're the war is over, and now it's time to rebuild, and now it's time to look to the future, and it's a new hope, and I don't think it could have been more appropriately titled. There's a lot of symbolism, in my opinion, with the Empire and what they represent, especially with, if you think about it, what was going on in the 70s. There was a lot of anti-establishment stuff going on, and I feel like the Empire has always represented the system, or imperialism, or the establishment. And the rebels, of course, contrary to that, they're kind of like the flower children, the hippies, the doves, as they used to call them, the people who were against the war, the people who were really more so about peace and camaraderie and humanity and everybody in harmony, harmony. And that's really, if you think about it, what being a Jedi is all about. It's all about balance. It's all about, like even Yoda has a quote where he's introduced, and we'll get to that in a later video, where he says that the Force is only used to defend. And I think that, it's very indicative all throughout the story arc that the Force is definitely, or the Jedi represent, the people, and the Empire definitely represents the man. Plus, you also gotta look at the fact that Rocky had just came out, so it was like the age of the underdog. You know what I mean? And it really set the tone for pop culture for like really the next 40 years, man. There's so much that we see that's based on the things that Star Wars made cool, if that makes sense, and the things that they brought to the cultural forefront. And so that brings me to like the metaphysical and the spiritual context of Star Wars, and that the Force in my opinion, is really it really represents God or the universe or the law of attraction, the Holy Ghost, like however you choose to like personify it. But if you look at the characteristics of the force, it emulates all the characteristics of the fruits of the Spirit, right? And the fruits of the Spirit are seen in different ways. They may put it differently, but that's a term used in Christianity, but those ideologies and those characteristics are seen in almost every major religion. And just anytime that anybody wants to build up their spirit man and live life on a higher plane, they're pointed to those characteristics. And of course, the fruit of the Spirit would be love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And if those don't sound like Jedi characteristics, I don't know what else to do with that. You know what I mean? And I think it was really cool that my mom, who started me on this wonderful path to blurredhood, she used Star Wars to teach me about faith, to teach me about spirituality, and to teach me how God works. You know what I mean? And how to open myself up to be receptive to him leading me throughout life. And I've used that as my North Star for the rest of my life. And I think, like myself, many of us can see a lot of who we are in Luke Skywalker. And, whether we be boy or girl, male or female, whatever, we can all see our path of self-discovery in his path of self-discovery, if we think about it. And especially for us young men who come from single parent households, who come from quote unquote broken families. I mean, you can't get more dysfunctional than the Skywalker family. And yet out of all that, he was still able to find his way and find his path and tell his own story and find his own path to greatness. You know what I mean? And I think that says a lot to us, especially as young men, you know what I mean? Especially as people growing up in this day and age, whether we be male or female, like I said, I think it speaks volumes to carving out your own path and figuring out exactly what kind of person you want to be for you. And Star Wars has stood the test of time, mainly because the story is an allegory for life, and the principles that Luke had to master to overcome his dark side are the same ones that we have to master to overcome the demons that we deal with in our own lives. And so maybe next time, if you haven't seen Star Wars, maybe you want to go watch it now. So, that'll put you up on some really dope pop culture. And if you have seen Star Wars, maybe the next time you watch it, you may have a different appreciation for it. Who knows? But until next time, again, I'm your favorite friendly neighborhood poet MC, Mason Parker, and this is B-Sides and Deep Dives. We out.